Hi, and welcome back to Political Science 101 or History 101, which is the history of the American political system. And we are finishing up our chart on how we're using our history analysis words in the different arguments that we're writing in our paper. Right now we're on top-down history, and that term, what we're really trying to do is take all the terms, taking a look at them, looking over their definitions, and then we're going to I want to challenge you to take 3 to 5 of these terms, these history and analysis words, and to weave them somehow into your paper. Because it is using analysis, it's taking it a further step, and just trying to go over them so that you can see maybe where some of these would naturally fall into your paper. Okay, so top-down history is also known as great man history approach. It is when exceptional historical figures are studied and not that of ordinary historical people. It often focuses on the male-dominant society and gives an unbalanced view of the time, because this history is almost always that of the elite class. Okay, and I think that could really be woven into the freedom of speech. Because I know someone's writing about Marilyn Manson and his artistic license, and that oftentimes he is stereotyped or misrepresented because he often uses things as double meanings. So you could talk about that because, normally we have top-down history of musicians like Frank Sinatra or these great men. And then you have Marilyn Manson, who is a counterculture or a subculture artist who, would be kind of from the bottom up. Although he is very famous, he's different, and wanting to look at a different perspective and a different viewpoint. Okay. Core periphery theory is fantastic. The core of a society holds the power, and the periphery are considered the outsiders or unacceptable to the mainstream of society and are often exploited by the core. This model can be applied due to superior ideas, due to race or religion. This implies a hierarchy and denies equality. Okay, so, you could really talk about that with incarcerations. The U.S. has the largest amount of incarcerations in the world, and it's like 4 times that of England, 15 times that of Japan, and it's all population. It's all based on the size of the population as well, and that's in our textbook, just in our textbook, talking about that. So, the core holding the power and the norms of society, and most of the people who are in prison or serving jail time are people that are minorities and on the outer fringes. And why is that? And what can be done? And, once someone is in jail, it changes them forever in a very adverse way. They don't come out the same. Why? Why aren't they coming out differently? Okay, that is very interesting. Plebeian, also called a plebe, pronounced plebe for short. It comes from the ancient Rome term for commoner, referring to the lowest class in the hierarchy of power in ancient Rome. Proletariat is workers or working class people regarded collectively as a mass group, often used when discussing Marxism. Lower class citizens they're not often used, as an individual. They're considered like a group of people. And plebeian could be easily worked into the incarceration in the U.S. Okay, that lower rung of people, or even Black Lives Matter, if you wanted to look at the hierarchy of races, even in the U.S. We have patriarchy, the system of society or government in which the father, eldest brother, or eldest male is head of the family and makes all the decisions, a system in which men hold all the power and women are largely excluded from it, male-dominated society or hierarchy. Not really seeing, where that could fit in. But, you know, if it strikes you, that's why I'm going through these, because if it strikes you that it fits in your paper, then boom, you know, try to weave it in as naturally as possible. Matriarchy, a system of society, government ruled by a woman or women, or where women have a higher influence, where the descent and relationships are reckoned through the female lines. Misogyny, dislike of contempt for or ingrained prejudice against women, a hatred of women, a belief held that women are less valuable, less intelligent, or lesser of the two sexes. Feminism, the advocacy of women's rights on the grounds of political, social, and economic equality of men. Not a hatred of men, but a desire to be treated with equality and not as a doormat. What's interesting, you know, I may have talked about this before, but feminism in the U.S. is actually more of what this definition is talking about. Feminism in other countries, other continents, especially in Africa, really deals with equality and democratization of all, where everyone, there's a leveling, you know, being treated the same. Okay. So, you know, anyone who's being treated like a doormat. So you might be able to weave that into Black Lives Matters, whether you're, you know, arguing for it or against it. Or incarcerations, you know, that the poor and you know, there's more minorities and blacks in the jail system. And, you know, why is that? If the percentage of them is only, if the percentage of blacks in America is only 10%, why is it so high? You know, there's a reason, okay? And we don't need to just, you know, put something out. We need to look into it and really, you know, understand and look at it, and is there a way out other than this option, and that sort of thing. So feminism, you know, worldwide feminism is often very different and actually much more inviting. There's a lot of fractions within the feminist movement in America because they really aren't very united, and they usually focus on their differences and not what they have in common. And I read amazing books about women leaders in Africa and how they just gathered everyone together that was being oppressed. You know, whether it's poor men or it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And they focused on what they had in common to bring them together. And oftentimes in America, in the US, feminists really have really struggled because they've left poor women out, or they left different religions out and really kind of isolated themselves. Or they have really left black women out. Just really, it's really sad. Okay, binary. Involving a choice or condition of two opposite alternatives, as in on, off, or yes, no. And immediately I think of the Black Lives Matter movement, because a lot of people think it is a binary or a polarity. Okay, here's another word. A state in which two ideas, opinions, or beliefs are completely opposite poles or very different from each other. And, you know, if you read about what Black Lives Matter stands for, Black Lives Matters is not saying that police lives don't matter. They're not saying that. Okay, if you actually read what it says, if you actually look at the evidence, they're also not saying that white lives don't matter. They're just they're trying to bring awareness to a hierarchy of abuse. Okay, and they're not saying that all police officers are this way, but you need to look at the factual information before you listen to, you know, the counter side. You know, that there's some middle ground, that it's not a polarity. Okay, let's see what else. Gun control. You know, that's another problem. You know, a lot of people think that all liberals are for gun control, and all conservatives are against it. And you really have to be careful, because that's a stereotype. Okay, if you can find factual information for it, you can't put stereotypes on things. You can't put this polarity on them, because it turns into not a factual discussion and argument for a stance, but it turns into more of a opinionated, mudslinging, name-calling paper. And that is not what I'm trying to teach you to do, to use facts. Because one thing I really want to reiterate is if you can keep calm in your paper, yes, I want you to write about your passion. Yes, I do. Okay. But you need to keep calm about your passion. You need to keep calm and take the passion that you have about the subjects or something that's very close to your heart and argue objectively. Because if you argue and you are name calling and using opinions and not facts, you will turn your reader off and most likely you will miss the opportunity to change their mind. Okay, so when you argue and you use factual information and factual ideas and you use facts and evidence and examples, and you do it in a calm and objective manner. What I'm trying to teach you is you have a much better chance at changing your reader's mind because you're like, oh, that's very logical. They're not mudslinging. They're actually trying to use factual information. So I'm actually trying to teach you how to argue better, whether it is a history paper, whether it's an English paper, whether you're on the job. You can throw a temper tantrum on the job and say, I work harder than they do. Why are they getting paid more than me? Or you can pull yourself together and be a mature adult and say, you know what? I really feel factually that this, and this is true. And this, and this is true. And I feel that I should be paid more. A boss is going to listen to you better if you're objective, you're calm, and you're not throwing a temper tantrum. Because it's not about your opinion. It's about bringing facts, no matter what you're trying to argue. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, we have developed nation, we have developing nation, and we have underdeveloped nation or country. Okay, and your developed nation or country, what was formerly referred to as a first world country, a country with a highly developed economic system, advanced technology, infrastructure, and highly industrialized. Why have we changed it from first, second, and third world? Because things are fluid. They can change. One country can be first world today, 50, 100 years, 500 years, flips later. Also, how would you, it was really funny when I was in class teaching face-to-face. I said, how would you like to be called a third world nation? How's that feel? You're a third world nation. You're a third world nation. You're a third world nation. You kind of feel stuck. It's not about political correctness. It's about not giving stereotypes, not giving, I cannot think of the word, tags, not giving signposts where they're not permanent. Okay, because any nation, look at Japan. I mean, Japan, their technology, they don't have the natural resources, but they use technology, they use innovation, they use education, and they catapulted, into a different nation, all right, in a successful manner, all right? So, that's why we're using these different terms. I know at first it sounds like, oh, it's political correctness, but it really isn't, okay? When you put a label, that's the word I was looking for, when you put a label on someone, it's not any fun. When you put a label on a country, it isn't either, okay? And they get upset, and they don't like it. So these are just better historical terms, and that's the way it is. Developing nation or country, a nation in which the income is much lower than an industrialized nation. It relies on few crops, exports, and farming is often conducted in less technological ways or primitive ways. Previously referred to as a second world country or a backwards nation. Let me tell you, if I lived in a different nation and you called me a backwards nation, I would take that as an insult, okay? Because there might be things about us, or if I was living in a different country, that you felt were backwards. But as I look at you, I think that I would see things about you that I think were backwards as well. So, oftentimes we label other countries and we don't look at our own issues and our own domestic problems that are humongous. Okay. Underdeveloped nation or country, a nation that is very poor and has very little industrialization, previously referred to as a third world country or a backwards nation depicted by extreme poverty, little natural resources, population growth usually puts a huge strain on their food supply. Okay, we have xenophobia, the intense dislike or fear of people from other countries, fear of hatred of strangers, foreigners, or aliens. we're about out of time. Democratize, to make something equal and level. Deconstruct. To analyze, deconstruct, typically expose the hidden by pulling apart.